While Game 1 between the Andy Griffith Show and Alfred Hitchcock Presents was very close, and the results of your voting surprised me. It's rare that y'all go against my grades, but I kind of like when it happens, honestly. In the poll from the comments and on the community poll tab here on this channel, Alfred Hitchcock won by 56.25% of the vote. That is a 12.5 difference, which means that Alfred Hitchcock got 5 extra points. That brought the final score, Alfred Hitchcock Presents 74.63 to Andy Griffith's show 73.51. So Alfred Hitchcock with a bit of an upset in my opinion in Game 1 of this Best of 7 series. We will see today, or this coming week, what happens in Game 2.
The Andy Griffith Show. Starring...
We are back for this battle in the best TV show ever tournament. We are in Game 2 of this series between the Andy Griffith Show and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, as we still have these shows from the 50s and 60s battling it out. We are going to start with the Andy Griffith Show today, and I have to say I enjoyed these next 4 episodes more than I did the first 4, and I really do feel like the Andy Griffith Show might be changing my mind only slightly. You know, I say that when I watch a sitcom, I need it to be funny, and that should be the most important thing. But I don't feel like the Andy Griffith Show takes that approach. They definitely take the approach that the writing for the show means more than anything, which I can commend it for. Now, you know, I grade these written shows on 4 different things, and we will talk about that again, so that it could be known what I'm grading on. Writing is a big part. Characters are a big part. I grade the acting as well. And then I do grade the entertaining level of the episode. So, you know, both the writing and the entertaining parts of the shows get a different grade. So I guess you can say that the entertaining part of the episode maybe dragged down the writing sometimes. But let's go over some of these episodes themselves. Episode 5 is called Irresistible Andy, and it was definitely my least favorite episode of this 4. It kind of follows up on the character Allie, who just came to town, and the sort of flirtmance, we're going to call it, as if he were a big brother, between Andy Griffith and Allie.
And where's the... Oh, hello, Sheriff.
Now, my first name's Andy.
Andy.
How are you, Miss Ellie?
Someone not feeling well at your house, Andy?
Oh, this ain't for the family. It's for the church picnic and dance Saturday.
A hot water bottle? What's it going to be filled with?
Oh, it ain't for nipping. It's one of the prizes.
Allie, of course, came to town because of her Uncle Fred, and in this episode, Uncle Fred asks Andy to take his niece Allie out on to a church dance, which Andy ends up asking her to do, but then he starts to get very paranoid, thinking that Allie and her uncle are trapping him, especially after Opie says he likes Allie because Allie gave him some ice cream. So Andy even starts to think that she's bribing Opie because they're trying to just make Andy marry her.
And she says that maybe to be on the safe side, she better give me my present now. And she did. And boy, I like her pretty fine.
That's it.
What is?
If I wasn't absolutely positively sure before, I am now. That ice cream ain't no present. It's a down payment on a husband.
Allie ends up finding this out through Opie, who kind of rats his father out. And Allie plays a little joke on Andy, but then is just mad at Andy because this was not the case of her. The funniest part of this episode was probably Andy telling a bunch of other guys that Allie was interested in them, and all of them going to see her and kind of like flirting with her in their own ways, in the ways that Andy told them she was attracted to them. So that was funny.
Anything you gentlemen...
Howdy. I'm Charlie Beasley.
I'm Ellie Walker. It's nice knowing you.
Sure thing.
Is there, anything at all?
But overall, the episode wasn't that funny, and I felt like Andy kind of looked like a fool in this episode, which is fine. But he usually plays the straight man character, so it's kind of interesting to see Andy as the fool. The over-exaggerated accent of Andy's in this episode was also a little too over the top. And like I said, the first game in this series, the laugh track doesn't really work for me. Episode 2 is called Runaway Kid, where Opie meets a new friend who ends up running away. But all this happens after Andy tries to teach Opie the valuable lesson of keeping his promises. And when the boy runs away and comes to Andy's house, Opie wants to keep the promise he made to the boy that he wouldn't let his parents know or tell anybody. Basically won't rat the kid out, even though Andy's trying to persuade him to, but Andy tried to teach him the lesson of keeping his promises. I thought this was a really good episode for Opie. Ron Howard was only probably 5 or 6 in this episode and did some really good acting as, of course, the child Opie.
I gotta talk to you, man.
Well, Barney, this is George Foley.
Oh, how do you do, George? Would you excuse us a second? We got some police work to do.
Sure.
That is the missing boy from Eastmont. I drew it from his description, just like they do in the big cities.
Oh, Barney.
Now, remember what the sheriff said? 8 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, blue jeans. That's the boy. That's him. I'd know him anywhere. I could pick him out of a Sunday school picnic.
Pick him out on the porch?
Now, according to this book I got, 8-year-old boys, most of them have similar physical characteristics, but from the description I got of this George Foley... What'd you say that boy's name was I just met?
That cute little fella that just went in the house there?
Yeah, I saw him.
George Foley.
But by the end, Andy has to convince the kid to go see his parents, and Opie's upset with Andy that Andy let him down because Andy's not keeping the promise that Opie tried to make with the kid. And Andy tries to teach Opie the lesson that sometimes rules are meant to be broken when you are trying to help someone. Once again, not the most funny episode that you'll ever see. But I thought this was a good episode for the characters and a good episode for the acting, frankly. Episode 7 is called Andy the Matchmaker. This is a Barney Fife episode, which is good to see. Barney is considering turning in his badge and leaving as deputy to Andy because he thinks Opie wrote a poem on a wall making fun of him.
Well, now, hold on there. Wait just a minute.
No, this is it, Andy. This is it. One whistle. I replaced the P in it, but I ain't gonna charge you.
Barney, what do you mean you're handing in your resignation?
This, of course, the opening scene of this was very funny. I think Barney, as I've said prior to this video, is probably the funniest character from this show for sure.
You was teased?
That's right, and by your own son, Opie.
Well, what happened?
I seen him do it. I caught him red-handed.
Well, what'd Opie do?
You don't believe it, do you? Well, I didn't think you would. One cap.
Well, now, wait a minute. I am bound to hear this. Now,
There once was a deputy called Fife who carried a gun and a knife. The gun was all dusty, the knife was all rusty because he never caught a crook in his life. Now, that's undermining the dignity of the law. It makes out like I never wanted to catch crooks. And that just ain't so. I'd catch them in a minute. But how am I going to catch them if there ain't any, for heaven's sake?
So Andy's plan is to make Barney regain his confidence. First, trying to set him up with a character named Miss Rosemary. I guess both Rosemary and Barney lack confidence in themselves. But also, he sets up a fake robbery and makes it seem like Allie got robbed so that Barney can try and catch the criminal that did the robbing. Barney ends up finding this stranger in town because, Mayberry is such a small town where everybody knows each other. So his idea is that it was probably a stranger that robbed Allie.
There he is, Sheriff. Where's your man. Fella robbed Walker's drugstore.
What?
Look, Sheriff, call off this crazy deputy. I don't know what this is all about.
Not much you don't. He's our man, all right. Told you I'd wrap this case up in 24 hours.
But Barney ends up actually catching a guy who is wanted in another state. So Barney did end up doing good, and it makes the paper. And I thought this episode was just a really good acting by Don Knotts. Don Knotts has always been great at playing characters, and this episode really shows you the character of Barney very well. So I liked Barney, kind of actually getting a win in the end, and just a real win in the end. It wasn't just Andy setting this up for him. But in the end, Barney does feel like a big shot and is not quite into going out with Miss Rosemary because he wants to, look around for options now that he's feeling like a big shot.
Well, now that I'm somebody in this town after cracking that crime and all, why should I be in such a hurry to tie myself down?
How's that?
Oh, I like Miss Rosemary and all, but why rush it? She's been around this long, she'll keep a spell longer, won't she? Sort of owe it to myself to look around first.
But Andy does get the two shy characters to kind of go out in the end, which was cute. So a very good, solid episode there. And episode 8 was even better. It's called Opie's Charity. Andy is appalled when he finds out that Opie only gave 3 pennies to a charity. But Opie tries to tell his father he's saving his money for his girlfriend.
You can't give a little bitty piddling amount like 3 cents to a worthy cause like the underprivileged children's drive. I was reading here just the other day where there's somewhere like 400 needy boys in this county alone, or 1.5 boys per square mile.
There is?
It sure is.
I never seen one, Pa.
Never seen one what?
A half a boy.
Well, it's not really a half a boy. It's a ratio.
Horatio who?
Not whole ratio, a ratio. It's mathematics, arithmetic. Look now, Opie, just forget that part of it. Forget the part about the half a boy.
It's pretty hard to forget a thing like that, Pa.
Well, try.
Poor Horatio.
Now, look, Horatio is not the only needy boy. Son, didn't you ever give anybody anything just for the pleasure of it? Something you didn't want anything in return for?
Sure, just yesterday I gave my friend Jimmy something.
Now, that's fine. What'd you get him?
A sock in the head.
I meant charity.
I didn't charge him nothing.
I meant something for the joy of giving.
I enjoyed it.
But the bigger story here that brings the comedy is that the woman who has the charity, her husband ends up returning. But the problem is that a few years ago, she told everybody that her husband was dead. It turns out she faked her husband's death. And there's some really good scenes with Andy and her husband, Tom, when he comes back alive, basically. Yeah, this was the funniest episode so far of the Andy Griffith Show. We're 8 episodes in now, and this was the first time that I really found an episode laugh out loud funny at times. So enjoyed those scenes. I also enjoyed the kind of ending to the Opie story where it turns out he was actually saving money for charity because his girlfriend doesn't have a good coat and her family can't afford it. They don't have the money, so that's why he was actually saving up money to buy her a coat. So yeah, this episode was just very well written, and I thought the characters all came out of it looking not only good but funny. I especially liked the ending where they're all going to eat chicken and Andy's telling Opie he's going to eat crow. So good stuff there. So, we had some good episodes, some bad episodes, a mixed bag here. The first 2 episodes weren't funny at all. And then episodes 7 and 8 finally brought out the comedy of the show. The writing for each episode was honestly pretty good though. I ended up giving the grade for Game 2 overall for Andy Griffith Show a 76. Andy Griffith Show is going up against Alfred Hitchcock Presents. We have 4 different episodes to go over here for Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Tonight we are going to tell the story of a woman who disappears into thin air. By the way, have you noticed that thin air seems to be the type of air most conducive to disappearances?
Starting with Into Thin Air. This episode was... I thought it was going to be good. The problem was the ending. So basically, this woman named Diana and her mother are in Paris. Her mother falls ill, and she goes to get some medicine for her mother. When she returns, her mother's gone. Nobody remembers either of them, or so they say.
I want the key to my room.
But the name, please.
Winthrop, Miss Winthrop. I'm here with my mother.
Winthrop, I'm sorry, mademoiselle. 1,000 pardons, but I do not, Oh, perhaps mademoiselle has mistakenly come to the wrong hotel.
Oh, good heavens.
The city is crowded with visitors. There is much confusion. You have merely mistaken the identity of your hotel. It happens frequently, mademoiselle.
I have not mistaken the hotel. I remember you. I know my room number. My mother's up there now. She's... Oh, what's happened? What can have happened? Where's my mother? I know it's the right hotel. I remember all of those people. All but that doctor. I did sign the register.
She remembers the guest clerk. He says he doesn't remember her. Her name's not on the register. Basically, it kind of turns out that the government made this happen because her mother died of the bubonic plague.
Where is she? I want to take her home to England.
No, my dear. No, I'm afraid that isn't possible. You see, your mother died of plague. The bubonic plague.
But I just felt like all the build-up in this episode to the woman knowing she's not crazy and that everybody else seems crazy and they're trying to make her feel crazy. That part of the episode was good. The build-up to this was good, but I felt like the ending just fell very flat. She just finds out that her mother died of the bubonic plague, and that's why this all happened. I just felt like there wasn't any payoff for everyone making this woman think she's insane. And there's just a lot of suspension of disbelief in this episode to make it feel like they were able to set this plan in motion in just the 2 hours she was gone to get the medicine. The interesting note of this episode that Pat Hitchcock, Alfred's only daughter, played Diana in this episode. And I thought she did a pretty fine job, but I had to dock the writing in this episode for not having a better ending. Episode 6 is called Salvage, and I thought this was a solid episode. A gangster named Dan returns. He's released from prison. He is looking for a woman named, I believe, Lois, who he holds responsible for his brother's death because she basically ratted his brother out to the police, and he ended up dying from that.
How do you think Richie felt with a cop's bullet in him? Did you ever wonder about that?
When you told the cops where Richie was hiding, did you think of his wife? Did you think of his kid? You knew Joan. You've seen that kid. Answer me.
And she did this because of this man Tim she was in love with, even though at the beginning of this episode her and Tim are splitting up because he's found a new rich woman to be interested in. So when Dan finds Lois, though, he is taking this like he's a changed man from prison approach. He wants to actually give money to her to open her own business. They're going to go into business together to make money. He's saying he doesn't want to go back to his gangster life, and that's why he's doing this. All of his brother's friends are upset with him for not seeking revenge, but it turns out all that Dan is doing all along is making Lois's life feel so good, making Lois happy again, only for him to kill her at her happiest moment. She has a business, She finds she's rich again. Dan basically scares Tim into taking her back to marry her. It is at that moment that Dan finally decides to kill Lois.
I had nothing to live for. I didn't care. I almost wanted you to kill me.
I know. And I said I wouldn't because it would be like doing you a favor. Are you really happy now? Happier than you've ever been?
Oh, yes. I'm the happiest woman in the whole world. Oh, Dan, I owe you more than I can ever.
Here. Everything to live for. Just like Richie.
So a solid episode, a bit predictable at times, but I did like that episode. Episode 7 is called Breakdown, and this was definitely the best episode of the first 8 episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents so far. Definitely makes you think, maybe even makes your skin crawl at times.
Why is everything so fuzzy? It's like dust on my eyes. How could that be? Hey, I can't close them. I can't move anything. I can't feel it. I'm paralyzed.
But the best part of the episode was probably the writing, I guess. There's a part of the writing that I have to point out that I think you have to suspend your disbelief too much. But I think the writing for the characters in this episode is what makes it so good. And also this episode was very entertaining. I feel like so far a lot of the Alfred Hitchcock episodes can be boring, and I think people could probably make the argument for that this episode is boring as well and moves a little slow. But I felt that this episode was very engrossing. So we have this cutthroat businessman named William. At the beginning of this episode, he's cruelly firing people that have family, and he doesn't like the weakness that they're showing. That he's firing this man who's feeling like this is going to really ruin his life. And he's having a bit of a breakdown, and William doesn't like the emotions that these people show, and that they're just not ready for business. But then William gets in a car accident, left paralyzed with his eyes open, can't move. People start coming by. They think he's dead because of the way he looks. He thinks people are coming to save him. This entire episode is us just seeing William laying there, eyes open. Everybody thinks he's dead when he's really not. We hear his inner voice talking the entire episode.
Man, was they clobbered. Good. That wasn't long.
Him too.
Yeah. I must look pretty bad.
We better get started. We may not have much time.
What are they doing? Why aren't they moving me? Oh, I have to do something to the car to get me out, I guess. They didn't come to help. They're just here to loot, to strip the car. They live nearby and heard the crash.
Come on. We better get out of here before somebody comes.
The people that find him at first just rob the car, strip the car, take things. Other criminals come by, think he's dead, take his clothes, take his wallet. And then even the medical people that end up finding him, finally help is called, and they don't really take any action to see if he's still alive, which I think this is the writing of the episode that makes you have to suspend disbelief. That even people in the medical profession aren't checking a pulse, don't feel that he's actually warm and still alive. That was a bit much. But for the episode, I kind of gave it a pass. It isn't until finally that he's at the morgue.
Oh, Don't go look at me. Take my clothes, do something. Don't leave me.
Jesse. Yeah? Look at here. What is it? Look at there in his eyes. Never seen that before. Like it was a tear.
And the mortician finally sees him crying, and that is what makes people finally realize he's still alive. So, you suspend disbelief for the message of this episode, that it's the emotion, William finally showing emotion this entire time, despite being paralyzed and nobody listened to him. He's trying to move his finger for people to see. He has this fight in him to stay alive. But, he hated emotion at the beginning of the episode. But it is the emotion of him crying that makes people finally realize he's alive. That's like, I guess, a bigger message, that you could be cutthroat in business all you want, so worried about money all the time. But are you truly living your life? Are you truly alive if you are that immersed in your work? I enjoyed the message of that episode and enjoyed the episode overall. Great episode, honestly. Episode 8 is called Are Cooks a Treasure? Where basically a serial murderous maid is going around, and that makes Ralph, this kind of rich guy named Ralph, think that his wife's maid is the killer that's on the loose, when he starts to have stomach problems from the food, or at least he suspects.
Mr. Brooks? Mr. Brooks, can you come in? Mr. Montgomery's sick.
How? What is it? What's wrong?
It's crabs. Darling, did you buy any weed killer lately or any spray for the rose bushes?
No, do we need some? I'll order it.
No, but I just found a package I don't remember buying.
In that old cupboard of yours, darling, that's been full of junk for years. You really ought to do something about that.
I've been thinking, Mrs. Sutton's first month with us is up tomorrow.
Is it really? It seems much longer.
I was wondering if we're completely satisfied with her.
I don't see how we could do much better. She's a real find.
He fires the maid and has a confrontation with her when, this was after he had the cocoa tested for arsenic. It comes back that there's just a hint of arsenic in the cocoa. Somebody is slowly trying to kill him to get away with it. He thinks it's the cook, but it's not. It turns out to be his younger wife, Ethel, who is younger than him, that's actually trying to kill him because she's having this affair with another actor that's on the set with her.
I'm leaving now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please believe me, my nerves have been on edge lately.
Well, it's not my place to tell you what's happening behind your back.
What do you mean, Mrs. Sutton?
I mean your wife and that young man that she's in the play with. They made me lie for them, and that's not what I was hired for, Mr. Montgomery.
So Ralph feels bad about firing the maid, but he's also just lost his only ally in the house. This episode was solid too. I thought it was entertaining. It's just an entertaining episode about a stomach ache, really, when you think about it. But I think it was still a solid episode. This were a much better overall 4 episodes than the 4 episodes prior. I felt like we finally got more entertaining episodes. We had some rough writing in some of them, but overall I thought the writing was better as well. My average for Game 2 for Alfred Hitchcock Presents was a 76.83. So very close here between the two shows. It's a 76 versus a 76.83. So Alfred Hitchcock with my grades is just 0.83 ahead of the Andy Griffith Show. So your votes are going to decide this matchup for sure. So please vote in the comments. Vote in the poll I'll be putting up for the next 24 hours. We're looking at episodes 5 through 8 for both shows, season 1 of both shows. If you want to go watch these episodes before you vote in the comments, please do. But note, the votes will only be counted for the next 5 days.